Hi, I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. So last week we discussed how the Rebel Alliance got their hands on their famous X-Wing starfighters. Today, let's discuss the X-Wing's counterpart at the Battle of Yavin, the BTL-Y-Wing. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, head down below and hit that subscribe button. So as many of us who watch the Clone Wars may know, the design of the Y-Wing actually dates back to the Clone Wars and the Republic Navy. The version of the Y-Wing that saw extensive use during the Clone Wars was the BTL-B Y-Wing. During the war, it made a name for itself, being a remarkably effective bomber. The Republic would end up using it in both ship-to-ship roles as well as air-to-ground roles. During the war, it would become a symbol of the Republic, almost as much of a symbol as the Venator-class Star Destroyer. Which is why it's not really surprising that after the war, the Empire didn't really have any interest in keeping the Y-Wing in active service. After all, immediately after the war, the Empire began scrubbing all remnants of the old Republic from their military. The goal of that, by the way, was to send a clear message that the Empire was not the Republic, was a drastically different government with a drastically different system. So, like the Venator and the ATTE, the BTL-Y-Wing was retired. Now, this wasn't good news for the manufacturer of the BTL-Y-Wing. You see, these manufacturers had just released a new model, the BTL-A4. After failing to secure the Imperial contract to sell these starfighters to the Empire, they began selling them to local defense forces. But with the Empire cracking down on local militias for the most part, the sales weren't great. After spending quite a while struggling to sell these fighters to local defense forces, the decision was made to scrap the stock that they had constructed. So the manufacturer began disassembling them and preparing them to be scrapped. But around this time, the Rebel Alliance is starting to gain traction, and they are in desperate need of fighters and military equipment for their campaign against the Galactic Empire. And with the Rebel Alliance basically willing to take whatever they could get, a fleet of partially dismantled Clone Wars-era bombers seemed like a good option. So the Rebel Alliance went about stealing them. The Rebels would carry out a series of raids with the objective being to take these Y-Wings before they could be sent to the scrapper. Since most scrapyards don't have armed guards, these were fairly easy raids in a lot of cases. There were a few examples of minor battles occurring while the Rebels were going in to steal these fighters, but generally it was mostly unopposed. With these fighters in Rebel hands, they were able to modify them and make them better fit the objectives of the Rebel Alliance. You see, the Y-Wing is actually surprisingly maneuverable for a bomber, hence why it's often referred to as a starfighter bomber. That means that in a dogfight, it could actually put up a decent fight against something like a TIE fighter. While it wasn't the most maneuverable, it did have heavier armor than most of the starfighters at the time, so it could take quite a beating. On top of its armor, it has an impressive armament. It could carry proton torpedoes, bombs, and a wide variety of other munitions. This made it the perfect option for a strike fighter, designed to be able to engage enemy fighters as well as strike a target. And these happened to fit with exactly what the Rebel Alliance needed. A strike fighter that was capable of getting in, striking an Imperial target, and getting out and handling any fighters they encounter along the way. Which is why when it came time for the Y-Wing to take part in the Battle of Yavin, no surprise that about half of the strike force sent were Y-Wings. But the Y-Wings weren't the only fighters present at the Battle of Yavin. If you want to know more about how the Rebel Alliance got their other iconic starfighter, the X-Wing, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I want you to tell me down in the comments what you think of the Rebels' use of a Y-Wing. Would you have used it differently were you in their position? Also, if you enjoy this video, please head down below and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.